About the only color that we see in the landscape this time of year is from our coniferous evergreens such as junipers and cedars and pines, arborvitae, just to mention a few. And one of the best places to see a selection of these evergreens is at the landscape of Mr. George Vaclayvic here in Oklahoma City. Mr. Vaclavik, thanks for having us out to your home.
Thank you.
It looks like you're busy planning a few things, which leads me to our first question. When is a good time to plant some of these evergreens?
The fall of the year is a good time for most of your needled evergreens. Your broadleaf's better to do in the spring.
In the springtime, okay. And you know, when we talk about evergreens and the different kinds, a lot of us have a tendency to think that most of those grow in northern climates, and we look at the zone to kind of see where they're going to grow. But really, we're more concerned with adaptability, and you've proven that here in your landscape. What comments do you have about adaptability?
I find that you need to look at the plants from the standpoint of hardiness to the cold, and then again we need to go towards what can take the heat.
Right, those Oklahoma conditions.
That's right. But after your plants get growing, then you kind of create their own little climate. They like companionship. And when you plant a plant just by itself, then you're subjecting it to a lot of difficulties. But you can see around here, I've created what we call a little bit of a woody atmosphere. And this
microclimate.
Microclimate. And this gives the plants a chance to be happy.
Right.
And this just following nature's way.
Right. Because you really are located in Oklahoma City, where there's a lot of pavement and a lot of houses. And I found it interesting, in your backyard you have really created a nice environment, kind of a Japanese effect with all kinds of evergreens.
Well, to me, I don't like a landing pad for a front yard. So I've created an area that I can look out at and watch the seasons change. I would like evergreens, but I don't want just all evergreens, because I like to see spring and I like to see summer and fall. But then in the wintertime, I don't want it to be blah.
Right.
And I need inspiration lots of times in the wintertime, and the evergreens do that for me.
Right. Well, Mr. Vaclavik, we might mention too that you're semi-retired from the landscape industry and still very involved in a lot of the associations now with horticulture. But last year, you know, we had a severe cold snap and a lot of people lost some of their evergreens and plant material. What suggestions do you have, or what practices do you do to pull those evergreens through that cold winter period?
Well, majority of the needle ones, you don't have that much trouble about the cold, except it's a good idea to make sure when you have a warm spell, if the ground is dry, to do a good soaking. And then mulch material. If you can see, I use a lot of the leaves instead of throwing them away, and the pine needles and organic material of that sort. And following nature's way.
Right.
Nature
let them lay there when they fall there then.
They coats the ground and do it, so that's what I try to follow.
So keeping them watered and making sure there's a lot of good insulation on that root system then I guess is real important.
To keep the freezing and thawing effect that we have so much of here in Oklahoma.
Well, Mr. Vaclavik, you have so many different plant species here. We could spend several shows on different kinds, but tell me a little bit about 3 of your favorite plants.
Well, one of them is this Tanyashota pine right here. I like it because it has a softness to it, the interesting bark. And then in the summertime when it's real warm, it gives off a perfume almost like a flower. It's even above the pine smell. It's the first time it occurred to me, I was looking around for a plant that was in bloom, and then I realized it was my pine tree.
Okay. And another common name was umbrella pine? Is
right, that's what some people call it.
Okay.
Then another plant that I like real well is the viburnum. It's really a deciduous plant.
Exactly.
But it holds its foliage till just right around, it drops about after Christmas.
Okay.
And so that's a pretty good long period. And I get the extra color from it. And then another plant that I like would be the American holly, which you can see right there. And they're native to southeastern Oklahoma, but they will adapt and do well here in the city. That's at a southwest exposure.
Right.
but it's held in real well.
Okay, now in your backyard, you mentioned too you had a favorite back there, which was the Colorado blue spruce.
Right. I like it for color. Now some people say it's a little gaudy, but I like color, and I believe that a little shot of color that way is good.
Right. And that one really isn't as adapted to our conditions. It takes a little bit of special care, which you said were...
Well, partly it needs a little protection from some real extreme hot winds in the summertime. Otherwise, wintertime doesn't bother it.
Right.
And a good mulching and make sure it gets watering. But one thing about conifers, you need to be careful that you don't overwater them, because some of our soil's pretty heavy. And so I either plant them where they're up a little bit, where they have better drainage, or I plant a tree nearby that the sweet gum here likes a lot of moisture. So in this weather where we've been having a lot of rain, it soaks it up.
Right. Okay.
And if you go in southeast Oklahoma, you'll see the pines and sweet gums growing side by side, and that's where I got the idea.
And that's an important point, is to watch Mother Nature and see what examples she can show us as well, the natural habitats. Now, Mr. Vaclavek, you've got a lot of unusual things that maybe are more difficult to find for some people. A lot of them are very much available on the market, but I'd like to bring to the attention of our viewers a new publication that is called Coniferous Evergreens, and it really is a good publication as far as listing a lot of the common ones that will grow here and tell you about their conditions that they need. Now, this is available at your county extension office, and there is a charge for this one of 50 cents. But again, it's a good reference for you to use when selecting evergreen trees like this. Mr. Vaclavek, that's about all the time we've got, and I want to tell you that we appreciate you letting us come out, and it really is a nice gesture for people to see the different kinds of ideas that they can use in their landscape. Thank you again for having us.
We hope you enjoyed this video. It's part of our OK Gardening Classics YouTube channel. You can also find more recent videos on our Oklahoma Gardening YouTube channel. And join us on social media for great gardening tips, photos, and discussion.